time for the Burning River Sportscast. It was all a little anticlimactic when the Browns showed up in Houston this week. Deshaun made his debut as we knew he would. The crowd booed as we knew they would. He looked a little rusty as we knew he would. And the Browns flew home with a W as we knew they would. This game did come with a few surprises, though, as the defense and special teams led the way to victory. Don't look at me like that. That, unfortunately, is incredibly surprising. And we'll break it all down for you next on the Burning River Sportscast. I don't care if Njoku's out for a game. Big shit.
Big shit. Big shit. Is that a saying?
It is now.
He went from off the leash to off the team real fast.
Look, I don't know what the explanation is. What I can tell you is that religion is officially more dangerous than porn.
Well, we'll see how it shakes out.
We will see how it shakes out. I'm going to shake it all over you. Wow.
Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up. That's the end of the show. Everybody have a nice night.
Welcome into the Burning River Sportscast. I'm Kenny Thunder, alongside 12-time winner of the Presidential Physical Fitness Award, Red Hot Ronnie Jams. Ronnie, can you still crush the sit and reach?
Oh, yeah. Natural born athlete, baby.
There you go.
Do you want to know where to find the podcast? Because I don't think you even asked me this time.
No, I figured you would just run through it, you know.
Oh, I'll
keep it
let
flowing.
you know. You can find our podcast wherever you get the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm talking Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Castro, and more. Just search for Burning River Sportscast. You'll find us.
Did you see that the Liver King is a fraud?
The Liver King?
You know the Liver King?
Nope.
You're not familiar with the Liver King?
Apparently I'm supposed to be.
You don't know about the Liver King?
Is there a Liver King?
He's like a jacked mountain of a man, and he eats livers.
I didn't know he was. I'm not aware. Apparently, I've been living under a rock. This is a great start to the podcast.
Wow! I thought for sure. I mean, who hasn't
winning that many presidential?
Yeah. You didn't win the National Physical Fitness Award. You won the presidential one. That's top 85th percentile, man.
Fair.
You know how many sit-ups you got to do when you're 17 years old to get that? Like 66 in a minute. And you got to be like sub 6:15, I think, in the mile.
Easy game.
The Liver King is an internet personality, much like us. That not like us promotes a ancestral diet of eating just raw meats. And he was just always making YouTube vids of him just chowing down on meats. But he's super jacked. And he's always like, eat their livers and just crazy and like fitness. He lifts like trees and stuff. He's like, oh, this is how our ancestors did it.
I pick things up and put them down.
Yeah.
I pick things up and put them down.
But long story short, it came out this week that he just is a big meathead.
Steroid guy?
Full of PEDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Typically, when you're looking at a dude, and the first question you ask yourself is, I wonder if that guy's on steroids.
The answer's yes.
Yeah. Like, you know what looks normal. Anyways, how was your weekend? This is the longest opening I've ever been a part of on this show.
I mean, you've never heard of the Liver King. It's wild.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
I ain't do shit. We had dinner over at the Merchant.
How was it?
It was quite delicious.
The Merchant Tavern in the Valley in Akron.
Had the the Flatiron Steaks.
Yep, Flatiron Steaks.
And it was quite tasty. It had chicken cacciatore soup.
Ooh. How was that?
They make a good soup over there, man.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of disappointed because I'm not a big
Sounds great.
cacciatore soup guy, but it was tasty. I just ate all the broth out. I didn't went into the cacciatore.
You decided to go against my advice. You didn't get the hot chicken sandwich, which is the best in town.
I did not get the hot chicken sandwich.
Fail. Everywhere's getting a hot chicken sandwich nowadays, and most of them aren't good. But his, at the Merchant, is phenomenal.
I mean, I maintain that the originator of the hot chicken sandwich in Nashville,
Prince,
just Nashville,
not like the Prince, like
R.I.P. The originator of the Nashville hot chicken sandwich in Nashville. I've had plenty of those. And
tell that story. Let's just keep this going. This opening that's just running forever. Let's keep it going. Tell the story about how...
I'm not going to tell the story, but what I'll tell you this is that I don't even care for that hot chicken sandwich because all that's good for is a bloody butthole.
Oh, it'll tear you up, man. You'll be feeling it for a week.
Yeah.
But no,
don't have hot chicken before you drive home from Nashville.
It's Nashville inspired, but it's not like the hot chicken sandwich that's just hot to be hot for no reason. It's just hot. Like, it doesn't even taste good. It's just hot. That's not how the Merchants is. The Merchants is delicious.
I'm sure that is. All their food is very good. But outside of that, we didn't do a whole lot. We ended our show, and so I figured I had Seinfeld on the list for a long time because like never really watched it.
What show was before Seinfeld?
We just finished The Wire.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, and that was good. But we didn't want to like start a new show right away. But I also need something to watch like when we're doing laundry or like eating lunch or something on a weekend.
Yep.
So I was like, I need a show that's like short. Anyway, Seinfeld is the winner because I'm like people regard
No soup for you.
People regard Seinfeld as like one of the greatest series ever made.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, well, I got to see
and it went out on
about.
top. It went out on top. Jerry Seinfeld was like, I'm just done.
I mean,
done because they're canceling you? No, I'm done because I don't want to do it anymore. Number one show on TV.
I don't really understand. I mean, I get the premise that it's like a show about nothing.
And what's the deal with airline seats?
And like,
why are they so small? Who are they trying to keep out of these things?
They just kind of like create caricatures of random life events.
Yeah.
And like it's funny, I guess, a little bit, but
I was never a huge Seinfeld guy.
It's not like,
I mean, there's a few memorable moments, like I just mentioned a second ago. No soup for you, but you're probably not even there yet.
No, we're in like season 2.
It's Soup Nazi. Yeah,
I'm familiar with the Soup Nazi though. Yeah,
You'll know.
I mean, but that's it. I wanted more like to be able to understand more of the pop culture references. So
That's fair. Our weekend was the same as the weekend before. We're taking care of a newborn baby, and that's
you have another one?
No, same one, still newborn, still newborn. So that's my life right now.
How long are they newborn?
Until they're not. I mean, I don't know.
So do you guys tell people like when they're like, how old is she? You're like 14 days. Like you say like 8 months or 9 months.
That's pretty much where we're at right now. I mean, yeah.
She's 11 days old.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Nice.
It's strange, but I mean, yeah, that's where we're at. I don't know. But it's fun. She poops a lot.
That's the fun. That's the fun part.
No, that's not the fun part. But I was changing a diaper. You didn't think a girl baby could pee up in the air, but she can. I'll tell you that.
It's 2022, bro.
No,
girls can do anything a boy can do.
That's fair,
except for the presidential physical fitness standards. They get to do like 15 less of everything.
That's not fair. I had to work so much harder to be a 12-time.
Yeah, they get to do half crunches and 43 of them.
All right, so that's enough of this opening segment, whatever this was. I know everybody's sitting here asking. They're like, Deshaun Watson just debuted for the Browns, and all these idiots can talk about is Seinfeld and their newborn baby pooping all over the place. Anyways. Deshaun Watson did debut. As Kenny mentioned at the top of the show, it was sloppy as expected, but miraculously the friggin' defense showed up and dominated on our way to an easy win. So let's go ahead and get into the Week 13 recap. You okay over there?
We didn't unplug the camera, and now my laptop is not. It was dirty. I don't know. Those things aren't connected.
That's an odd correlation. Anyway, we'll start with the Houston Texans.
I was going to start before that, just delaying the Deshaun talk a little more.
Why?
Just because I thought it was worth mentioning that before the game, a lot of the news was about the college football playoff. Like that was the news leading into the game. Yeah. So I had notes about that. Just that Ohio State is a finalist for college football playoff.
Time to shock the world.
Just kind of funny after a week removed from everybody like wanting Ryan Day fired, and now you have a chance to
the weirdest
win
part
a national championship.
The weirdest part is there's still hangers on from that. Like there's still a lot of people that don't want him here anymore because he lost to Michigan twice, and they're like, no, you can't lose to Michigan. And it's like we're in the playoffs, man.
Yeah,
behind Alabama and Clemson, because Alabama's Alabama and Clemson happened to be a dynasty right at the right time. We've had the most playoff appearances, but
It is weird how these schools kind of come out of nowhere. Like Clemson got good, and now Georgia's been on just a tear.
Clemson.
I mean, Ohio State and Alabama have been college football for the last 20 years, but it's just funny how these programs can build.
Clemson's coach is a world-class recruiter, though. So I mean,
Yeah, but like before he got there, was like,
oh, they were trash.
Nobody cared about Dabo Swinney.
I mean, he's been a kind of a, I don't know about a household name, but he's been a known name around college football for quite some time.
There's a lot of known names.
I digress.
Either way, I was a little bit just surprised that the committee didn't go towards the rematch with the way they ranked the teams.
I think they'd rather see the rematch of Ohio State and that team up north in the national championship if they can get it.
And that's fair.
That's going to be the most watched national championship game of all time if it happens.
What I actually had written was that if Ohio State does do the unthinkable and beats Georgia, I don't think TCU stands a chance against Michigan.
No.
That might be the biggest national championship ever.
Period. Those tickets to that national championship game will be going for like $10,000 a piece. Like,
oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, like that's gonna be wild. That's gonna be absolutely wild.
So we'll see. Maybe Stetson Bennett will roll an ankle or something.
Hey, I think Ohio State, when they play at their best this year, can hang with anybody. That includes Georgia. It's just they've been kind of even before the Michigan game, they haven't really been hitting their stride as of late. So
they just have always been because they win 95% of their games. They have a tendency to get complacent.
You get bored.
It's not even so much that you're bored. You just aren't playing your hardest.
Go through the motions.
Time.
You aren't.
Yeah.
I get it.
We can beat this team without playing our best, and then sometimes teams surprise you. But anyway, just thought that was of note since that was the news leading into the Deshaun Watson debut on Sunday.
All right, I'm just going to restart this. We're going to get into the Week 13 recap. All right, we're going to start, as we always do, with our opponents, the Houston Texans. Start with their offense. Kyle Allen. Nobody knew who that was before this week.
They still don't.
20 of 39 for 201 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, 1 lost.
I mean,
that guy's not good.
Here's the thing. Davis Mills got benched for that guy.
Did he get benched? I don't care about the Texans, so I didn't really even find it necessary to figure out what happened with Davis Mills.
But I think they actually benched Davis Mills because he gave them a better chance to win, and at this point, they're just playing for draft picks.
Tank for picks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tank for Browns picks, by the way.
Wow. Yeah. Well, they can't control that one. That's going to be whatever it is. They're in the driver's seat for the number 1 pick, though.
Yeah.
Let's move on, though. Dameon Pierce, 18 carries, 73 yards, 3 catches, 22 yards. He did it. I think he fumbled, but he did. I mean, he had an okay game. He did fine. Like, he didn't.
Yeah, it was another weird game where
why didn't they run the ball more? Because they were running the ball fine.
They were having.
They did get behind though.
True, but it wasn't like the game was out of reach. Even at the end of the game, I mean, what was it, 27-14 or whatever? Like, it wasn't like we blew them out. It wasn't the Cowboys and the Colts last night.
Yeah, I mean, it amazes me, all these teams in the NFL, and it's they showed it in this game. The Browns show it on a weekly basis. Like, why is everybody so quick to abandon the run? I mean,
well, Stefanski's allergic to it.
There's no better way to control a game than to control, like, if you're able to run the ball and control the clock. And for whatever reason, you get down 1 score, and every coach in the NFL panics and decides it's time to throw the ball 40 times that game.
Stefanski has to stick himself with an EpiPen every time he gets a couple of runs with Nick Chubb in a row.
Stefanik needs to get his shit together. Wide receivers for the Texans, not much going on all day. I mean, he threw for 201 yards. There wasn't much to go around, but Nico Collins did find the end zone, so that's all I have of note there.
Yeah, I mean, Dorsett, like, they just don't have anyone, and Brandon Cooks was out.
There's nobody you're watching that you're like, man, this guy's impressive. Nico Collins flashed a couple times, but I mean, nobody on that team impresses me as far as receivers go.
Yeah, I mean, they're just not.
Brandon Cooks probably won't be there next year.
They're just not very good.
Brandon Cooks is a funny story. He just gets traded like every few years. Said he's still one of the better receivers in the NFL.
It's just because he's so fast.
Yeah,
he's just he's always running from town to town.
Yeah, and then the defense for the Texans didn't do much. They had 1 sack, 2 QB hits. So didn't get a lot of pressure. They did have an interception. which is that's the definition of rust.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. We talked about it last week heading into this week is that, thank God we were playing this Texans team for Deshaun's first game because they did just enough to kind of give him scrimmage looks. He got some pressure, had to get away from some tackles, but he was never really in danger.
Yeah, he got caught with that pick, not seeing the not seeing the defense dropping a defender into coverage there. And,
when it was early, it was like his second drive or first drive. So
he was quick to pull the trigger on that throw too, which I think again that's the definition of rust. He's like, "Oh, guy's open, I'll throw it." I didn't see anybody.
And truthfully, if he would have went with the crosser, he would have had his guy open. He just the defensive back probably actually was confused. He was like, I don't think I have that guy. I'll go this way.
And decision making is always that's the one that takes the longest because you got to see live defenses. So,
but overall, just the Texans in general looked like a 1-9-1 football.
Oh yeah, they looked bad.
They're just
that's
bad.
why that was it for all my notes.
They're just really bad.
I got nothing for them. So let's go over to the Cleveland Browns here. Start with the coaching like we have. Mike Prefer, his squad finally did something.
Look, Prefer's still trash. I'll say
is still trash.
Donovan Peoples-Jones did something.
Yeah.
And they didn't
punt return,
and
by
they
the
didn't
way.
have any kicks blocked this week, so I guess that's a win.
Your defensive coordinator your special teams coordinator is trash when you have to clarify it was a good week because we didn't have a single kick blocked. That's bad.
And we still almost gave up a big return on our side. So
I forgot on the safety after the safety punt we decided let's just not tackle this guy for a while.
Yeah, and Bajorquez
we'll get to that.
Laced the ball.
Yeah, I have it in there. We'll get to that.
So yeah, Prefer's still trash. I'm not ready to forgive him for anything. He's still
no forgiveness. I was just noting that his squad finally did something.
They did one thing.
Joe Woods defense looked good in this, but it was against a god awful team. So same thing with him. Not ready to. He's not redeemed at all, even a little bit at this point. But just have to throw it out there that the defense looked good.
I have to imagine if you go back and watch every Texans game this year, every defense they've played looked good.
Fair. That's fair. Kevin Stefanski. Another streak broken here. The first streak was the punt return. It was 121 games, by the way, since a punt had been returned.
Do you know who returned the last punt?
Travis Benjamin. He's always earning it, baby.
T-Benj.
Yeah. That's in the notes later, too. So, so another streak broken this week for Kevin Stefanski. Somehow, he managed to give Nick Chubb less than 20 carries in this game, but we still won. It's the first game all season that Nick Chubb had less than 20 carries and we won. So... yeah, I don't know. It was an easy win for the Browns, but I'm still going to complain about Stefanik because how do you not give him 20 carries when we're just...
agreed. Especially in a game where it's your quarterback's first game back in 2 years and you want to keep as much off of him as possible.
Yeah.
And...
The name of the game this time was to give him easy throws and keep the pressure off.
And let's be honest, the drives that stalled most of the game, the drives stalled all game because Deshaun didn't play particularly well, which we'll talk about in a sec, but the drives that stalled because we were trying to pass the ball.
Yep.
We were running the ball effectively all day. And
he averaged 4.7 yards a carry.
And I'll give Stefanski this. I'll give him the fact that Chubb didn't have 20 carries, but Kareem was heavily involved. So they still ran the ball 20-plus times. I'm just saying that's the explanation for how they won without giving Nick Chubb the ball 20 times is they gave Nick Chubb the ball almost 20 times and gave Kareem more carries than he's used to getting.
Well, and how about the defense scored twice? The special teams scored once. Then you don't have to score with Nick Chubb. But
true.
Yeah. Regardless, until this dude gets it through his thick dome piece that Nick Chubb needs 20 carries a game, I'm just going to keep ragging on him because Stefanik, you're an idiot. Just give him 20 carries. It's simple, absolutely simple.
I'm still worried about this guy next year, man. Especially if they do go on a little run here towards the end of the season.
Well, all his defenders have been saying wait until he gets Deshaun back, and now he's 1-0, and to no credit.
But they're still 5-7. They could still go 5-11.
They could
5.
But let's go ahead and move on to the offense here. We'll start with Deshaun Watson. Big debut. And like you mentioned earlier, pretty anticlimactic here. We had predicted that there was going to be a decent amount of rust that he needed to shake off, and that's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, and I would take that a step further. Even I would just say like the crowd booed him in that, but I think it was even more subdued than anyone even realized. Because
well, and I think that they talked about it in the when they were broadcasting the game, like leading up to it and things in the pregame. I know the allegations, and I know all of the bad that comes along with that. But in that community, he was very beloved because he's done a ton of work in that community and everything. And I think that just with the fact that he hasn't been, he never got charged criminally, and that that everything else got settled. And so, I mean, for whether you love it or hate it anywhere else, he comes out of this fairly unscathed. I think that in a lot of the fans' minds down there, they still see him as that guy that did all the charity work around town, and they don't see him as a monster as some other people do.
It's just such a unique circumstance. The only thing, like, as I'm thinking about like Deshaun coming back after 2 years off, like what can I compare that to? Because it's a little bit unprecedented. There really aren't stories of guys outside of injuries
Mike
that
Vick,
have taken
the only other one.
time off. Michael Vick is the only one that I could come up with to kind of compare it to. And I think in a lot of ways, Mike Vick's experience is similar because of the fact that he had laid groundwork in Atlanta and then in Philadelphia, and those towns still, I'm sure there's pockets of people there that
and
really
besides
appreciate
that,
Mike
I
Vick.
think people were they were even more against Mike Vick than they are Deshaun Watson because Mike Vick was convicted. He went to jail for 2 years.
Right.
So
well, that's why it's so hard to even compare it to that, because like Mike Vick's a criminal.
like by definition, he's a criminal.
Right.
Whether or not any of the allegations are true or not, by definition, Deshaun Watson is not a criminal.
True.
He was not convicted of anything.
No, and he was levied punishment and served his time.
Right, and like we say it all the time. I'm not going to dive into all the politics of that and where I stand or where you stand because it doesn't matter, to be honest with you. But I think that goes a long way with, like I said, with the fans and how they view him, because you don't have that convicted felon next to your name, and you're
and I think too, just the Texans are such a mess at this point.
They're just like our team.
I mean, that stadium was embarrassingly empty.
Oh, yeah. There's hardly anybody there. But anyways, Deshaun Watson, his numbers on the day, 12 of 22, 131 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. And like we said, that interception was bad.
You can't throw red zone
It was just a delayed. What was it? The linebacker or the defensive lineman dropped into coverage at the last second. He threw it right to him.
Yeah.
Like, directly to him.
It's a bad look, and good quarterbacks make mistakes all the time. But just in general, this game, it was so weird because for the last few years we've been so used to watching Baker overthrow guys. It was weird.
It was weird seeing a guy
underthrow so many passes.
I texted you halfway through the game, and I was like, "Dang, that's a lot of underthrows."
Like the first time it happened, you were like, "Okay, like he let her rip a little hard, whatever," and then it happened again. And then it was all game long.
Was he breaking wind?
And you were like, "What? Why does he keep doing that?"
He did it quite a few times. Yeah.
So I think there's obviously some mechanical things going on there, which again I think is probably natural when you've taken that much time off.
Yeah.
So there's going
absolutely.
to be a lot of work he has to do to refine his throwing mechanics and throwing motion to get back to where he was. The good things that came out of this debut, I think he did show. Even though he's not in football shape yet, I think he showed some elusiveness and ability to move around in the pocket. He didn't have a ton of big runs on the day, but he was able to.
The one run that he had, it was only an
around.
8-yard run, but it was impressive. I mean, he juked one of the guys out of their shoes and evaded the pass rush in the backfield before that, and it was. We argued back and forth all year about how mobile Jacoby Brissett was, and I still maintain that he's very good at getting out of trouble. But Deshaun Watson's on a whole nother level. I mean,
totally. I mean, he's a totally different athlete, and
so dynamic.
So it was good to see that they didn't stretch the field a whole lot, which I was surprised that they didn't take a shot or two just to let him lengthen his arm out. But yeah, just overall, just very kind of. Wet blanket in terms of debut. The good news is the team won, so you can't be that upset about it. My biggest concern going forward for Deshaun Watson is I agree, totally natural for him to have some rust coming back. My question and concern is how long does it take to shake that rust? Because
and that's where there's a lot of debate on this among Browns fans. If you read forums, if you read any of social media, whatever, people argue back and forth. And there's so many Browns fans that think, oh, well, he's considered one of the best quarterbacks and all this stuff. And I saw a bunch of comments about he should have. I actually saw this, on social media today. Somebody said he should have played backyard football and got guys together to give him looks while he was away from the facility. I'm like,
it's
what people don't understand.
It's effectively what he did.
Well, and what people don't understand is there's a big difference between any of the guys that he's able to pull together off the streets in an NFL defense.
Oh yeah, he's playing with Division III college athletes and high school kids.
Yeah, of course he's going to torch them in his backyard, but that's not the same speed, the same things that he's going to see on game day.
He's been torching the Browns in practice. The people, the media that have been at the open practice days have been nonstop talking about how good he's looked. But it's, to your point, a totally different speed when you get to game level.
Yeah, those guys, they kick it up another notch, and it's faster than anything he's seen in multiple years. And you asked about how long it's going to take to shake the rust off. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but I think
well, that's the thing. Right?
I think this year is pretty much lost. Nobody wants to admit it, but I think it's pretty much lost because I do think there's going to be rust, and I think it's going to take him several games to get back to form, and maybe even the rest of this year.
And that's kind of where I was coming from. Is I don't know that it's unreasonable for it to take him the rest of this season, and for him,
Browns fans will say it's unreasonable
for him to really not look like Deshaun Watson until after a full off season of OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and regular practices with the team, where he's taken all the 1 reps all season long.
Yeah, a lot of Browns fans will say it's too long, but it's an investment. It's a long-term investment for us. We need to give it time.
It's not like Bitcoin.
No.
Or it is like Bitcoin. Nobody knows. Ask that Bankman-Fried guy.
It's something. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get back into talking about Deshaun Watson again at some point in this podcast, in this episode. So let's move on. Nick Chubb, 17 carries for 80 yards. I think he did have a catch or two, or maybe not. I don't know. But he didn't get to 20 carries. We won somehow. Thankful for that. Kevin Stefanik, give him 20 carries. Kareem Hunt, 9 carries, 56 yards, 2 catches, 18 yards, and he looked much better in this one than in recent games, and he ran hard.
I just think it was a matter of him getting more opportunities. When you have 4 carries in a game, it's hard to really get any kind of rhythm.
Yeah, it is tough, and I don't know what to make of this game. We still didn't use him very much in the passing game, which is what I kind of expected. I thought Kareem actually would get a ton of work in this because you're throwing him short passes from the quarterback just to get him going. And
well, nothing Stefanik does really makes any sense.
No. It's the craziest thing to me that the game plan should have been short passes and to get him comfortable, right? Run the ball a lot. We ran the ball a decent amount. We didn't throw a lot of short passes, but we also didn't throw a lot of long passes. He only threw for 130 yards. It was the weirdest thing. Nothing made any sense as far as the offensive game plan in this.
I'll say this. It was the worst offensive game output all year, easily, by far.
Oh, yeah. Not even close.
And against the worst team that you're going to see all year.
Yeah, so and next week we got the Bengals, which we'll talk about, but that's you have zero margin for error right now.
Yeah, zero, very little.
They got to get up to speed. They got to figure out the offense with Deshaun Watson. You would think that knowing he's coming back in week 13 the entire year, that they would have been working on that or doing something to say, hey, we should prepare for when he is back.
Plan.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Amari Cooper, 4 catches, 40 yards. DPJ, 3 catches, 44 yards. They're both kind of there.
Just casualties of the game plan.
Anthony Schwartz is back to being Anthony Schwartz.
Why is he still on the roster?
I don't know. He did not contribute in this one.
How did that not come through today as a release?
I don't know. He coughed up the football. It was the opening drive, wasn't it? It was the second play or something.
I think it was the second drive, and they were having a good drive.
And then he's just
Deshaun
here you go.
Was getting into a rhythm, and then...
And it wasn't even it wasn't even like he got, totally stripped or something like somebody just...
It was a DB tackle on him.
Yeah, and I dropped it. My bad.
He just put it on the ground. Here, you guys take
so
this.
terrible.
I don't
Anthony
want this
Schwartz,
anymore.
you suck again.
And then they tried to run him. I was like, after the fumble, I was like, why? Just cut him now. And then they gave him the ball later in the game on a reverse again. I'm just like, get this guy out of my face. I'm done. I'm done with Anthony Schwartz. I'm done making lighthearted jokes about how bad he is. He's not an NFL receiver. He's not he's ass. He's got to go.
Anthony Schwartz, Kenny Thunder says you ass.
There's probably a lot of good jobs available right now in insurance, car sales. I hear like plumbing apprenticeships are hot right now.
Wow.
But
Plumbers make good money.
The NFL is not for you.
Yeah. But it goes back to Kevin Stefanik and his weird ass game plans every week. Like you said, he fumbled the ball. He goes back to being his normal self and not really being anything worthwhile. And we try and reverse. Does Kevin Stefanik think that if you run a reverse every week, it's going to work every time? Like the more we run it, the better.
The more the game plan for it.
Yeah. Like I don't understand. That's a play that you break out like once every 6 games.
Here's the thing that's pissing me off. Every time I hear Kevin Stefanik talk, he's talking about everything we want is on the other side of hard. This team magnifies any tiny adversity that comes its way. David Njoku's out. Oh my God, we gotta replace that production with Anthony Schwartz. Well, how can we get him involved? You have good players. You have the best running back in the NFL. You have a solid stable of receivers.
It seems pretty simple.
An all-pro quarterback coming back. Your offensive line is one of the best in the league. I don't care if Njoku's out for a game. Big shit.
Big shit. Big shit.
Like, get your shit together.
Is that a saying?
It is now. This isn't that difficult.
I don't care. Big shit.
Like, I don't know.
It bugs me too, and I just don't get it. Like everything Kevin Stefanski does, I'm just like, why? And
it's that half Ivy League education.
Is that's his new catchphrase right now? Though you mentioned it, is everything
big shit?
No, everything's on the other side of hard.
Yeah, like I keep hearing you say this, but like you just keep manufacturing your own like adversity. Like people get hurt in the NFL, but you still have a whole other. There's 52 other guys on the roster.
It seems pretty simple. If a receiver goes down, if a tight end goes down, you just run the ball more.
Run the ball. Yeah, you got 2 really good running backs. I don't know. What did Harrison Bryant have? 1 look all day? Like throwing the ball.
1 look.
One
look. But anyways, we'll move on. The offensive line for the Browns, they gave up 1 sack, paved the way for 174 yards rushing. But it's weird because they only gave up 1 sack. There was hardly any QB pressures, but I actually credit that more to Deshaun Watson's ability to kind of give himself some room with his legs than the offensive line, because there was at times they looked lost in this game. I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, I mean, Yelda Froholt is definitely a step down from the level that Ethan Pochik was playing at.
Still just so weird to say when the third string center is the.
It's quite obvious to everyone in the room. The other thing that I think has become quite obvious over the last couple of weeks, especially, is we talked way earlier in the season about what do you do with Jed Wills. I think it's time. It's time. It's time to not cut ties. He can finish the year, but I think if the question is, do we pick up the option?
Wow.
I think the answer is no.
You know, I just something funny. I wish I would have bookmarked it and been able to tell you which publication put it out there. But they did the top 25 players under 25. He didn't make the list, but he got honorable mention.
Yeah, well, they were on drugs.
That was what I was thinking big shit.
But
I bet Jed Wills takes pretty big shits. He's a big dude.
Massive shits. But at this point, I don't even think it's worth seeing like if he would be a better right tackle. There's no need to experiment. Just do your due diligence. Go find your next Ethan Pochik.
I would say he would probably be if you can get him for okay.
He was in the Baker Mayfield commercials. He's got to go too.
He's out. Let's go ahead and go on over the defense. Myles Garrett, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit, no sacks. He just kind of was there this week, which is odd, seeing how well the defense played, and he was kind of non-existent. So
what was also odd was that Joe Woods actually did move him around on the front a little bit this week.
That was the weirdest thing ever because he doesn't do that.
Trying to get him against the lesser tackle. And
did we just expose Joe Woods more on how terrible he is at
it still didn't
getting mismatches?
Do a whole lot. Now, look, a lot of what Myles Garrett doesn't show up on a stat sheet week to week.
Fair.
Because even if he doesn't have any sacks, he still disrupts the game. He's still a good run stopper.
Calling for double teams.
So, yeah, I mean, he should be making the other guys on the team better.
Which I think he is. I mean, that goes into the defense played really well today.
Yeah, like I don't think Garrett had a bad game. It just seemed like against a weaker opponent, you would have expected that to be a 2 or 3 sack game.
Right. It just seemed odd because with the defense, they were kind of riding a hot streak the entire game, and he couldn't get home. So it was just odd. Jadeveon Clowney, I just marked him as present for this game. I don't think he really did anything, but he was present.
Like Barack Obama voting president.
Yep. Sione Takitaki, 9 tackles in this one, and it led the team despite leaving the game with an injury. So
yeah, let me say this because I think Takitaki has gotten a lot of shit.
We give him shit sometimes.
The last 3-4 weeks, I think he have been the strongest that I've seen of him.
Yep,
and fair. I think he's had a lot of energy at a time when the rest of the team looked lethargic and lost and tired and just disinterested. And he's played hard through that. So I think this is a bigger loss than
the injury is all the more devastating when you take that into account. But we'll get into his injury here in a little bit.
And just that position in general is a weak position group.
They're going to have to
already
sign
weak.
Somebody.
You've already lost two of your key contributors there to bad things. So,
yep. Denzel Ward, 6 tackles, 1 pass defense, and 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown in this one. Denzel Ward becomes the first player in Browns history to recover 2 fumbles and return them for touchdowns in the same season.
Huh.
Fun fact.
I don't know what to do with that information.
You're welcome.
But thank you.
Tony Fields II. Hell yes. We'll talk more about him soon. I know I got you guys fired up just mentioning his name, but just a phenomenal effort out of this guy.
Everybody loves Tony Fields.
Dude, that was unreal. He was everywhere. But we're moving on because we'll come back to him. The rest of the secondary as a whole looked pretty good, but they played Kyle Allen, so I mean,
hard not to.
Yeah. Special teams: Cade York 2 for 2 field goals, 3 for 3 extra points. Cade York confidence meter is up here right now.
It's going up.
Yeah,
stock's looking good.
DPJ, the punt return for a touchdown, like we mentioned earlier, breaks a streak of 121 games without a punt return touchdown for the Browns. Dates back to you beat me to it earlier, but it dates back to 2015 when Travis Benjamin returned one against the Titans in Week 13, I believe it was.
He always earns it.
And then we got Bajorquez. I put him on here because he averaged 51.8 yards per punt on 6 punts. It wasn't like he had 2 punts and he averaged 51.8 yards. He had 6. And his long was 67.
Yeah, the offense wasn't going anywhere all day, so he was a busy cat.
Yep. The one after the safety was insane too, but it did get returned to midfield, so that one didn't even count as one of his long ones.
Yeah, the net on that wasn't very good, but but was booming the ball all day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you have different rules when you're returning a kick based on how far like the ball should travel as a return man, and those guys were running backwards all day long.
It's always good to see that. And I will say this, we mentioned Mike Prefer still trash, even though we did have a punt return for a touchdown. But I mean, let's be real here. On his kick coverages, is the strategy to not tackle anybody for as long as possible? Like, let's see how close they can get to breaking one, and then we'll tackle them.
Is there a strategy? I think you're giving him too much credit.
Fair.
Here's the other thing about Prefer. I thought it was fascinating the breakdown that, and I don't know if you heard this or not, but Jay Feely was able to give on Cade York's kicking and the things that he was doing with his plant leg and his plant foot.
Oh, and he was pointing way off to the right, and that's why he's missing everything right?
Like kicking, like fundamentals of kicking.
Shouldn't Mike Prefer be telling him those things?
Yeah, like there shouldn't those be things that, and I don't know, maybe he is, maybe Cade York's a fucker, but, whoops. But
just dropping an F-bomb on Cade York. That feels bad.
But
here's the deal. Bottom line. I do not prefer. I wish we had someone else.
Yeah, they got to go.
Overall, the Browns 304 yards to the Texans 283. Time of possession, Browns 32-16, Texans 27-44. It was a sloppy debut.
I made them extra sloppy for you.
It was a sloppy debut for Deshaun Watson. Definitely some rust, but that's to be expected. It was surprisingly uneventful, especially with some of the accusers being in the stadium. There was a big deal made about that before the game, but really nothing.
They actually made a bigger deal about the fact that Deshaun had all his peeps there. He had a suite full of 25
His
people.
entire family was there. And then, Browns fans are so divided on him. It's so weird. I mentioned earlier looking through the comment section, forums, random posts on social media and things. But like all the people bashing him at this point, I mean, what does it accomplish? I know that you can't stop him, and they're going to be haters. But what does it accomplish?
Stop.
Like it's just so weird to me. Like reading any Browns forums right now, because you have two camps, right? You have, and I would actually say three. There's the camp that they hate Deshaun Watson for what he's accused of doing. Fair. There's the camp that wants him to play well because he's our quarterback. And then there's the third camp, which is the wild card and everything that always comes up. And it's the Baker bros that are out there like, no, F Deshaun Watson. I love Baker Mayfield. And they just throw a wrench in everything.
Yeah, Baker's not coming back no matter what happens. So there's that. But I agree, right? I mean, I think, like I've said, am I comfortable with Deshaun as a person with all the things that have gone down? Like, not particularly, but he has paid his penance. He has done his time. Anything that was able to be levied at him was he's settled out of court. Yep. I'm sure those things cost him a pretty penny. So
they didn't cost him $230 million, but they cost him a pretty penny.
On some level, like the alleged victims have been compensated. He's served his time. Outside of the two pending civil suits that remain, there's not anything else for us to litigate over this, because it's done. It's over, and he's your quarterback, and it is a heavy investment of $230 million in a guy that's fully guaranteed. So even if he were to play badly throughout the rest of this year and play badly throughout most of next year, like, he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
He's the starter.
There's not
the end of story.
Even if you're a Jacoby bro, like, Jacoby's not coming in to save one of these games.
Right. Well, and even so, to go a step further, a lot of these people, and we talked about it before we started the show today when we were just going over our notes and everything. There's so many people in these comment sections that it's like they expected him to completely light it up day one. And even if they didn't expect him to do that, because they aren't Deshaun Watson supporters, they use it as, the Browns are terrible. This is the worst investment ever made. All this stuff. Like, the dude's played one game in Cleveland.
and okay, so and I will play devil's advocate there. Like, it may be the worst investment they've ever made, but we don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Yeah, regardless. Yeah, I'm with you. It could turn out that it was, but at this point, to make that statement is just asinine. Like, how do you know that?
It could be that 2 years off was way too much time, and he'll never be the same. That's 100% possible.
Yeah,
but we don't know, and you're whether you like him or not, you're stuck with him. So if you're going to root for this team, you're going to have to find a way to hold your nose and hope they do good.
And it's just like you said, he was off for 2 years. No shit, he's rusty. Just give him a chance. Check back with me after the season, or honestly, probably at some point next season, and let me know how he's playing. And then we could talk about what an investment it was, like how good of an investment it was. But yeah, so Baker Bros are probably pretty upset today, by the way, but we'll get to that. And just so everybody knows, Kenny and I both picked this game right. It was probably the easiest game all year to pick. The only other one that was close to it was probably the Jets, and we lost that. So,
yeah, I mean, and just to kind of put a final bow on Deshaun and the return, like, there was so much made of this, and so many expectations and things coming into this game around what this was going to look like, what he was going to look like. It was, and the fact, like, the NFL scheduled the Texans for his return, like, all these things kind of led into this, and
it was so odd.
Honestly, like, it couldn't have been done any better.
Yeah,
because this was the perfect game for him to come back.
Yeah, I agree.
Despite the fact that he was in his hometown, all this stuff, like to play this team that you basically didn't even have to have a quarterback on your roster to win, was the perfect one for him to kind of dip his toe back in the water.
Just real quick, too, speaking of the NFL scheduling this game against the Texans, or scheduling his return against the Texans, even though they'll say it wasn't planned. You think they got a lot of flack for that between when that happened and now? Because did you see they buried the game? It was only available in like two markets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They still don't want anything to do with Deshaun Watson.
No.
They would prefer that the Browns just go gently into that good night, but but
he's here to stay.
He's here. So
any other Browns notes that you had in this one? I don't have anything. We already talked about Taki's injury, which I had written in here, and we'll talk about it again soon. So
no, that's the game.
All right, so that's going to take us to the Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week, baby. Hoo, hoo.
I'm a dog, y'all. Who let the dogs out? Dog mentality. Come on now. I'm coming in to kill right away. With my
All right, Tony Fields the second.
My favorite player.
Where did that guy come from? 4 total tackles, 1 pass defense, 1 interception, which he returned for a touchdown, 1 forced fumble, which was recovered by Denzel Ward for a touchdown, and 1 fumble recovery. This dude was everywhere.
I'm not even sure that if you go to the Cleveland Browns shop online that you can buy a Tony Fields jersey without customizing
I'm surprised that his pictures on their website when I go to them, and it's not just like the gray outline. Like that's how little we've talked about Tony Fields the second.
True. Sorry, I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb there.
But yeah, just talk about taking advantage of your opportunities when you get them. Like this dude, he went from, like I said, like we hardly talked about him to everybody in Cleveland knows who he is now.
Do we know Tony Fields though?
I mean, they know his name at least.
What do we know about Tony Fields?
We know his name at least. And it was, like I said, just a phenomenal effort, phenomenal game from him. It was unreal.
And, I think, we talked about the deficiencies we've had at linebacker.
Is he the guy?
I don't know what Tony Fields' ceiling is or if he's a long-term fix or fit for us, but he had a hell of a game Sunday.
Oh, it was a great game. Do you think he woke up and he was like, that's it. It's happening.
He's a handsome little guy.
You're a fan, huh?
Whatever that does for you.
You got a crush on Tony Fields the second.
A little undersized at 6'2", 223 for a linebacker.
Just how you like him. You're a big guy. You like him undersized.
He kind of. Am I a bear? He's a twink.
Yeah, he's a chubby chaser.
So maybe that's the secret for the Browns. We'll just have him and JOK, just the smallest, fastest linebackers.
That's the secret.
And we just have strong safeties at linebacker.
It's like the NBA. We're going small.
Yeah, it's a small lineup.
Yep. So
yeah, hopefully they don't run against you.
But yeah, Tony Fields the second. He's the guy. The Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week. Let's get into the division roundup, though.
Another Monday night game.
It's all the Monday night games. All right, so we'll start with Baltimore. You picked Baltimore to lose, but they squeaked past Denver. You almost got me.
I almost got you because it took all 60 minutes of that game.
And Lamar Jackson was hurt in this one. It's a knee injury.
He literally got hurt in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And
hang on. We'll get to that.
I'm not allowed to talk on the podcast.
We'll get to that. You're going to start talking about Russell Wilson. We'll get to Russell Wilson. But Lamar Jackson did hurt his knee in this one. Not expected to be season ending. But in case anyone didn't know, this is the exact same place they were at last year when he got hurt. They were in first place in the division with an 8-4 record, and then they lost their final 5 games and missed the playoffs. And with this win, they improved to 8-4 in the division, and he's hurt and potentially missing a good chunk of time this year. So will it happen again?
I don't know if it'll happen again, but it happened on Sunday. This guy went down in the first quarter. Wrecked my fantasy league.
Wait, is he on your team? He's on your team?
Oh, yeah.
There's your first problem.
In my dynasty
As a Browns fan, you should know you never draft anybody else from the AFC North at quarterback.
Well, he gets like 30 points a week.
Fair.
But
Fair.
He goes down, and I'm like, great, my fantasy day is ruined, but I'm going to beat Ronnie now. Because Russell Wilson surely will outduel Hundley.
You would think.
You would think. And they had a lead at the time.
You would think. But alas, I was right and you were wrong. So feels bad for you.
The ultimate disappointment.
Yeah. You did get one here. Cincinnati defeats Kansas City 27-24. Kansas City just can't win in the jungle. It's the hardest place to play in the NFL.
I told you. Rule the jungle.
Getting Jamar Chase back probably helped him in this one.
Yeah, probably.
But come on, he couldn't have been hurt a couple more weeks so that he didn't have to play against the Browns.
Yeah, we get him next week. This week.
Yay. Kenny picked this one right, though. I picked it wrong. Good job, buddy. We'll throw in the Steelers beat the Colts on Monday Night Football last week. We're throwing that in here because the game was going on when we were recording last week. I picked that game right. Kenny picked it wrong. He's mad at me for picking the Steelers, and I picked right. And speaking of picking the Steelers game right, I picked the Steelers against Atlanta again this week, and they beat Atlanta 19-16, so that's another one. Yes for me, no for Kenny.
Yeah, another one that they shouldn't have won, but
I told you got to pick your spots with the Steelers. Sorry about it.
they're trash.
They are trash still. And so this week, just to wrap everything up here, including the Monday Night Football game that we added in from last week, I went 4-1, and Kenny went 2-3.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's take a trip around the NFL.
To be fair, I picked Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Here we go. It's starting.
Originally, but
I
you got
had
to me with the
it.
magic number conversation, so I picked opposite of you just because.
Don't worry. I'll break out the magic number when we're ready for it.
I'll give you a magic number.
Around the NFL. We're going to start with Baker Mayfield. Because why not? He's officially been released by the Panthers. He went from off the leash to off the team real fast. Is this dude done?
I don't think so. I think
You think someone else is going to pick him up?
I do. There were some quarterback injuries this week. I think potentially San Fran is a landing spot.
That's what he thinks. That's the rumor is that Baker Mayfield himself thinks he's a perfect fit for San Francisco.
Who is their quarterback going to be?
We'll get to them.
But look, I think the Panthers organization was a terrible spot for him to land. I think it was the only spot that was available at the time.
Oh, the Panthers are in shambles right now.
He had to go there.
We think the Browns organization looks bad. Take a look at the Panthers.
Yeah, that team has been unraveling since day one. Traded McCaffrey, fired their coach. Like Steve Wilkes is a bozo.
Bozo, such a funny word.
Big shit. And their team's just not that good. I mean, they have one good player left out there. DJ Moore is about it. The rest of that team is just absolute trash.
Yeah, they're bad. And they wouldn't trade him for a first-round pick. This team that's completely rebuilding right now, they would not trade DJ Moore for a first-round pick at the trade deadline.
Which should tell you everything you need to know about their organization and where they stand.
Yeah.
He was never going to be successful there. I do think it's a shame that he's lost his confidence the way that he has and played as poorly as he did there. But I do think in a better organization with better pieces around him, we saw in Cleveland. I mean, he took this team to the playoffs.
He just looks broken right now, though.
He does look broken, but I don't think he's done quite yet. I think he's going to get one more shot. But if he doesn't land on the next shot, then he probably is done.
Yeah, we'll see though. He's heading to waivers right now, so we'll see if anybody decides to pick him up. I don't know.
The timing was odd. It to me it felt like
they said it was mutual. So
well, yeah, but I think the timing of it says to me like his agent is hearing something. Because you can't trade for him this time of year, right?
No.
So
the trade deadline is passed.
Unless someone called and talked to his agent and said, "Hey, we'd be interested if he was available." For him to go in and say, "Hey, can I be available?" Obviously, I'm not a fit here.
I think he's just tired of riding pine.
Possible. He's good at that, though. He's
like, wait. You're telling me Sam Darnold and PJ Walker are better than me?
Steve Wilkes says yes. So
fair.
It's interesting to think about, like what would Jacoby be worth in this quarterback market right now with some of the injuries?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, I bet Jacoby would probably fetch a decent price tag right now.
Fetch a sweet deal.
But anyways, enough about Baker. Speaking of bad quarterbacks, let's talk about Russell Wilson.
Let's not.
Despite an injury to Lamar Jackson in the first quarter and the Broncos holding the Ravens to 10 points, they still lost. Oh, man. Russell Wilson, 17 of 22 for 189 yards and no touchdowns. And with those 0 touchdowns, Carson Wentz remains ahead of Russell Wilson in touchdown passes this season. Reminder, Wentz has not played since week 6.
No.
And then I'll go ahead and finish off on one fact we missed last week for Russell Wilson. In week 12, Russell Wilson was QB 33 in fantasy football. In case anyone's wondering, there are only 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
33 out of 32 is not very good.
No, but I digress. Broncos country, let's ride. More like, let's hide. Oh, man.
Yeah, look, it's all fun and games with Russell Wilson right now because he is just absolute trash. Let me tell you this, though. This is my biggest fear for Deshaun Watson.
Is that he's going to be Russell Wilson?
Is that if we end up in a similar situation with Deshaun. I'm not saying he will. Look, I hope Deshaun comes back and is an all-pro. But
right. So for example, though, we were talking about earlier the people, wanting to write Deshaun off right now and say it's the worst investment ever. Like, if you're the Broncos and he signed Russell Wilson, he's just been ass the entire season. Now you could start giving him crap.
Well, yeah, like this wasn't like one or two.
And he didn't have any time off.
This wasn't one or two bad weeks. This was like we brought in an all-pro caliber quarterback and thought he was going to change the franchise, and he's been bad every week of the year.
Yeah, and it's not like he hasn't played for 2 years.
So
he's been playing, and he's been playing well. If
we get to week 13 and Deshaun's not had a single good game, then we probably should start scratching our heads.
Yep.
But that is my biggest fear.
Fair.
And just to that point, like Russell was a good boy. I think he was a virgin when he met Ciara. So
maybe
there's a lot to like there, except for the fact that he can't play football anymore.
We mentioned Baker Mayfield at the top of this segment, and
he waited until marriage,
and how he thought he'd be a good fit in San Fran. That's because Jimmy Garoppolo has a broken foot and is done for the year, and Brock Purdy
is it officially done for the year?
He's done for the year.
Wow.
Brock Purdy came in relief for Jimmy Garoppolo, and he became the first Mr. Irrelevant to throw a touchdown pass in NFL history. So that's pretty cool. In case anyone didn't know, watching the podcast, Mr. Irrelevant is the final draft, the final pick in the draft. So
yeah, the last guy taken.
But he actually played well.
He was so irrelevant that I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he actually played well in that game, and the 49ers cruised to a win over a solid team. They beat the Dolphins 33-17. So, but feels bad that they lost Garoppolo for the year.
Yeah, what happened to the Dolphins? Didn't something happen in that game?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's the Dolphins, man. We're in our own little bubble up here in Northeast Ohio, and
it seems strange that
they're like the Jets. I don't care about the Jets.
That's true. That they would have lost to Mr. Irrelevant.
I mean, you almost feel like something had to happen, but I don't know. Also on the injury front, Cowboys fear starting cornerback Anthony Brown has a torn Achilles.
Never good.
And Trevor Lawrence had an ugly injury scare this week when his leg got twisted up underneath of him while he was getting tackled. MRI set for today. So far, the news that I've seen is they don't expect it to come back anything serious. So
that would be surprising because that one was ugly.
Oh, his knee and his lower leg were turned all kinds of ways that they weren't supposed to be.
Under that guy.
Yep.
And, during the game yesterday, I'm just kind of on Twitter, and I saw the Lamar injury as soon as it happened. And there were some posts that were like, "Oh, look at this graphic Lamar injury," and I watched it, and he just like banged his knee on the ground, and I was like, "This is a dumb post." And then the Trevor Lawrence one came on, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah." You gotta love the media because they go from like a few people complained about. When they showed Tua's injury over and over again, not a few people, a lot of people complained about them showing Tua's injury over and over again on Thursday Night Football. And now it's the complete opposite. They're like, we can't show any injury again ever.
We don't want to show it.
So, which even when they're not bad, like you said, they're calling Lamar's injury graphic. He literally just like fell.
Yeah, he just got tackled. Yeah. It wasn't even bad. But Trevor Lawrence's was one
pretty
that
ugly.
looked like a guy that was going to get carted off the
Yeah,
field.
pretty ugly. But let's talk about good quarterbacks now. Jalen Hurts remains the front runner for MVP as the Eagles just keep on winning. He became the first Eagles quarterback this week with 350 pass yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in the same game. So
Look, we've talked all
they
year.
had Donovan McNabb for a long time in his prime.
We've talked all year about the Eagles just kind of being a surprise. I've watched a few of their games now, and Jalen Hurts is, making me a believer in Jalen Hurts. He's just super impressive, everything that he does.
Yeah, he's been fantastic this year, and it's coming into the season, I would have never called that, but it is what it is.
Well, it was like even going back to the offseason when they brought in AJ Brown, like I was like, okay, like what's that do for you? You go from one team that can't really throw the ball to another.
Wrongo.
Totally changed the dynamic of that offense.
Yeah, and you mentioned AJ Brown. Speaking of the Eagles, AJ Brown got revenge on the Titans in this game. That's who they were playing.
Huge game.
And he had 8 receptions for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. All of those stat totals were more than all of the Titans wide receivers combined. Like, talk about a statement game. Like, yeah, let me go.
Fair.
See what happens.
Yeah, Tannehill played like ass in that.
Yeah.
I think he only had like 140 yards.
I said we're talking about good quarterbacks now.
But I'm just talking about the game. But yeah, huge game by AJ Brown. Again, he's changed the way that offense operates.
Absolutely. And let's talk about the Cowboys real quick.
No, before we do this, we forgot to talk about the Cowboys last week because Dak's phone screen. Dak Prescott's background on his phone screen is Dak Prescott.
Man,
talk about ego.
And it's not like it's him with somebody else. Like, my background on my screen is my wife and I's. Like, my lock screen is now my baby, and my screen when you open my home screen is my wife and I's wedding picture.
You can be in the picture with someone,
right? Not him. It's just him, just like posing like
it's like it's like the back of his jersey.
He's like, I'm Dak Prescott.
I'm in the NFL and you're not.
Yeah, but let's keep talking about the Cowboys. They did tie a record this week held by the 1925 Chicago Cardinals. They scored 54 points. That's not the record, although that tied some sort of high for the Cowboys. But they outscored Indy 33-0 in the fourth quarter, and that was the largest scoring margin in the fourth quarter in NFL history, along with those 1925 Chicago Cardinals.
It was wild.
They just kept scoring points.
I didn't even I watched the beginning of the game, and then I kind of turned it off, and then came down and turned it on at the start of the fourth quarter. Massacre.
Yeah.
That I've never seen. They weren't even trying to tackle the Indianapolis Colts. They were just going for the ball. And every time they did,
they got it.
They put it on the ground.
Yep.
It was the most asinine quarter of football that I've ever watched. And even to the point where Dallas had put in all their backups. They put in Cooper Rush and some running back I ain't never heard of. And they scored a touchdown.
Well, for a while, people were wanting Cooper Rush to start over Dak Prescott. So...
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying,
he comes in and lights it up, of course.
I'm just saying, they got to the point where they put in the platoon of backups, and Indy still couldn't stop the backups.
Sometimes you just have those days, and yesterday was one of those days for the Fighting Jeff Saturdays.
This was a rough look for Jeff Saturday, because that team...
That was the game that everybody points to and says, this is why you don't pull a guy off his couch to be our head coach.
He came in and started pretty good with the win over the Raiders, took the Jets to the
be
brink,
fair,
or the Eagles.
While he was sitting at home, he said the Raiders were pretty bad. So he is...
Yeah, he was already game planning for them.
Yeah.
But this was, that team looked lost, listless. Matt Ryan looks totally washed, probably more than Russell Wilson washed.
Whoa. It takes a lot of effort to be more washed than Russell
he's
Wilson.
like in a dry cleaner. He's so clean. He looks bad, and they don't have a lot of answers sitting around there because Sam Ehlinger is the one on the bench. So
that guy is pretty good.
It's going to be a rough last few games for them. Also, just see Zeke jumped
in the pot again.
Jumped in the pot
Nice. That's my favorite Zeke move is when he jumps in the what is it, the Salvation Army pot. It's the best.
Well, I was also just reading too that they did. I think it was the Thanksgiving Day game. They played whack-a-mole.
Oh,
and they had like 3 of them jumped in the pot.
Put that one up there too.
Beat them with the football, but they got fined. Like
apparently, we aren't talking about the Cowboys enough.
They got fined $22,000 for that one.
Oops. It's chump change.
America's team.
Yep. Christian Watson.
This guy came out of nowhere.
This season and just continues his tear for the Green Bay Packers. This rookie has 7 receiving touchdowns over the last 4 games. That's good for second most touchdown catches by a rookie in a 4-game span in league history. The only one better is Randy Moss with 8 in 4 games. When the only guy better than you at something is Randy Moss, you're doing that thing pretty good.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Every time I turn the game on, a Packers game on, he's scoring a touchdown. It's wild.
It's been crazy. And everybody thought they were crazy thinking they couldn't replace Devontae Adams' production. I mean, that guy's, if he's not doing it, he's coming pretty darn close.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to replace Devontae Adams, but this guy just came so out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what to make of this.
Dynamic.
I don't know where he played college ball or anything. He just all of a sudden had 4 touchdowns in a game, and then ever since then he's been like on fire.
Yeah,
catches a touchdown a week.
Well, Aaron Rodgers was like, "Oh, this guy's pretty good. I guess I'll throw him the ball."
He's certainly fast. I don't know how big he is, but
he's super shifty too.
I can tell you this: he's one of those striders. Like some guys you look at, like Nick Chubb's a guy where you look at him and his feet are moving really quick. This guy just takes these big ass long. Well, and it's weird because you watch glides down the field.
I agree, and it's weird because you watch Christian Watson, and typically when you have a guy like that, they aren't shifty.
No,
they aren't able to make the moves. Christian Watson is he could break your ankles and then get to the top end speed.
Certainly athletic.
Yeah.
I need to do some Christian Watson opposition research and see where the hell this guy came from.
We needed to play Green Bay.
I don't know enough about him.
Speaking of guys on tears, Justin Fields continues to put up crazy rushing numbers as a QB. 71 yards rushing in his latest game with a touchdown. He now has the longest streak of 50-plus rushing 50-plus rushing yards and a touchdown of any QB since game logs were first tracked in 1950. So it's weird that the stat didn't tell me that it was in league history. They're pretty sure that somebody did it before that, but nobody tracked it, I guess.
But did they win?
No, they lost. They were officially eliminated from playoff contention this week, actually. I think they might be the first team out. Well, besides
Texans.
The Texans.
We'll be there soon.
Just shut your filthy mouth.
Wow.
And finally around the league, the NFL announced a Week 15 Saturday triple header on the NFL Network, which the Browns are a part of. We start with the Colts-Vikings at 1 p.m., then we get the Ravens-Browns at 4:30 p.m., and the Dolphins versus the Bills at 8:15 p.m. So, fun day on the NFL Network.
Fun day.
But yeah, I mean, you got anything else?
Saturdays are for the Browns.
Saturdays are for the Browns, baby. So that'll do it for our Week 13 coverage. Let's take a revenue break, and then we'll get into Week 14. Towpath Distillery. Towpath Distillery, the newest craft distillery in Northeast Ohio, located in Akron and family owned. Towpath Distillery focuses on high-quality spirits carefully made in small batches. Towpath's lineup includes an ultra-smooth, award-winning premium vodka, a small batch silver rum made from the highest grade molasses, an American craft gin made with 9 botanicals, and a blended straight bourbon made from corn and rye. Towpath Distillery. Visit towpath-distillery.com to find an agency near you where the spirits are available, and make sure to ask your local bartender and restaurateur. Towpath Distillery. Handcrafted, small batch, local, and family owned.
I would also just add that we're approaching the holiday season. It makes an excellent gift.
It does make an excellent gift, and there's 2 limited edition releases right now, so we'll get into those here soon.
Go get some.
Get some. All right, let's get into the Week 14 preview.
rolling.
All right, we've got the Bengals this week. The Battle of Ohio Part 2.
Yeah.
And now that we've gotten through the Watson debut, we'll see how he progresses. And I'm sure we'll continue to talk about him a lot. But let's just start with the matchup previews, or did you want to do opposition research? What do you have? What do you want?
I mean, the good news is we've already played them once, and we know that the last time we played them...
I think I have the same position matchup for this one that we had last time.
The last time we played them, we haunted them all night long.
Oh, yeah.
So, to me...
Big time.
I don't know that much has changed in this game outside of the fact that they have Jamar Chase back.
Which is a big piece.
It is a big piece. So they'll have their full complement of receivers. So I think that the DB matchup is...
Your heat kicked on and it feels so wonderful.
is important. But I think the blueprint is still the same. I think it's run the ball. They can't stop the rock. No one can. Nick Chubb totes it, and he's the best. So... that's it. That's the game plan.
It's got to be. Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up. That's the end of the show. Everybody have a nice night.
Keep Deshaun out of trouble and run the ball. And I think that if they try to do what they did the first time around and beat you with Joe Burrow, which they very well may, because Joe Burrow is playing really well right now, that he can't beat the Browns. So.
Yeah, so I mean, you previewed the entire matchup, but I'm just going to go ahead and go with a position matchup that I want to focus on.
Okay.
This one. The Browns secondary versus the Bengals passing attack. Again, I think this was highlighted in the first game, but we did our job in the first game and we won. So, Joey B's still over there, still out there slinging it. Jamar Chase is back for them. He didn't play in the first meeting, like we mentioned. They got Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. So we got to see how our DBs will match up. MJ Emerson since then has completely come on strong. He's been phenomenal for us in the defensive backfield. I think he may have. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think he may have supplanted Newsome as the starter opposite of Denzel Ward out there.
Newsome? I mean, this year, but I think Denzel could find himself on the trade block in the offseason.
Well, yeah. Well, Newsome's hurt right now, too. But that's what I'm saying. Like, in the short term, I think he may have gotten himself a starting nod opposite of Denzel Ward right now.
He's been phenomenal.
And speaking of that, Ward is back. He was back this past week. He had a decent game, fumble recovery for a touchdown, which was kind of a gift. But, he played well besides that. Kind of hard not to when you're playing against Kyle Allen. But it'll be a fun one to watch. We gotta see if Ward can, we mentioned it before, can he actually stand up to these number one receivers still? Since he's missed so much time with injuries, whatever the case may be, and just not had a particularly great campaign this year. So we'll see. It's a big test for him.
Yeah. Just speaking of position matchups, I mean, I think the other one of note is I don't know whether Joe Mixon will be back this week or not.
They said he's supposed to be.
But
concussion, in case anyone's wondering.
Samaje Perine has played really well in his absence.
Yeah.
So with the emergence of Samaje Perine and potentially Joe Mixon coming back, if the Bengals decide to run the ball, that could be a difficult day for us because we still have not stopped anyone all year, including Dameon Pierce this week had a decent game against us. So
no, we don't stop the run. Why would you stop the run?
In limited looks. So that to me is, as far as like which way this game could go, I think it depends on the game plan of the Bengals. And I think if they try to beat you with Burrow, they'll lose. And I think if they get smart and run the ball,
they'll win handily.
It could be difficult for us.
I would agree with that. And I kept this one in here. It's going to be in here every week just because it's something to watch until it's not. But Deshaun Watson versus the crowd, he's going to continue to hear it, especially when we're away from First Energy Stadium. And I mean, even so in First Energy Stadium a little bit, but this week we're down in Cincinnati and he's going to hear it. And I just want to see how he responds, if he's able to keep us cool and play fairly mistake-free football. Because that's what we're going to need to win the game.
Rule the jungle.
It is, if you ask Kansas City, it's the hardest place to play in the NFL. So
they have his number, but I think the same thing that's in Patrick Mahomes' head is in Joey Burrow's head about playing the Browns.
He still hasn't beat them, has he?
No, he hasn't. Not since Kevin Stefanich showed up.
So yeah, as a team, Cincinnati is 8-4 right now. They're really coming on strong heading into the tail end of the season. They're a pretty good football team, despite what Kenny and I thought early this season. I thought that they were kind of overrated. They were going to have be a little bit of a letdown after going to the Super Bowl last year. But it looks like they're actually a pretty decent team. I mean, I also thought the Browns were going to be good. So what do I know?
Look, I think Jamar Chase is a game changer.
Yeah, I agree.
They have some good athletes besides him for sure, but him on the field,
it changes everything. It's like Nick Chubb on the field for us.
It opens everything up for
Not that we know how to use Nick Chubb. They know how to use Jamar Chase.
And Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have such are just so in rhythm and so in tune with each other that's the scary thing. I mean, you watch that game against the Chiefs, and in the most important moments, when everybody knows the ball's going to Jamar Chase, they get the ball to Jamar Chase, and there's
nothing you can do about it.
I mean, it's amazing to see, but I still think outside of Jamar, I think he makes that offense really good, but I still don't know that they have the personnel to be a top team in the league.
No, I don't know. I
guess their record says otherwise, but
with injuries and everything, though, I think they're getting hot at the right time again, and they're probably going to end up making the playoffs out of the North.
And they've been playing well of late. So
yeah, and for the Browns here, we're going to need a great game all around to get the W. Deshaun's going to need to make huge strides from the Texans game, his first game back. He's going to need to make huge strides in order for us to have a chance in this one. And here's the bottom line. Kevin Stefanski, damn it, Stefanik, give Nick Chubb 20 carries. If you give Nick Chubb 20 carries in this game, I'm not going to guarantee a win, but I'm going to guarantee a win. So
I'm going to guarantee that we won't lose.
Yeah. Give him 20 carries. That's the game plan. Control the clock. Just give him 20 carries. Give him 20 carries. I'm going to say it a few more times. Give him 20 carries. Give Nick Chubb 20 carries. Kevin Stefanik, please give Nick Chubb 20 carries. Give him 20 carries. Give Nick Chubb 20 carries. Give Nick Chubb 20 carries. Give Nick Chubb 20 carries. Please.
The thing that is so frustrating is that if he had been giving Nick Chubb the appropriate amount of carries all year long, 20, I wouldn't have the questions that I have.
Right.
I would say you tried to leverage your best player and the most talented athlete on the field, and it didn't work.
We can't fault you for that.
I can't fault you for that. The fact that he continues to was trying to win games, having Jacoby Brissett throw the ball 42 times, that's the baffling piece. And they have to take care of Deshaun the same way again that you had with Jacoby, because he's just not there yet.
I agree. So let's run through the injury report real quick. So as we've mentioned a few times already, Sione Takitaki torn ACL.
Never good to tear a CL.
You tear a CL, it's over.
It's over for you.
So he is done for the season. I mean, we'll be lucky to have him back, I guess, at this point, probably for OTAs and everything in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you won't have him for that stuff. You'll be lucky to have him,
ACLs are a little bit different than they used to be. You can come back from them in a few months now. So
I think they're different for everyone, though, because I think the guys that come back from it quick are guys like Dalvin Cook that are already just tremendous freak athletes. And not that Sione Takitaki is a bad athlete. He's in the NFL, but I don't think he's the same caliber of a guy like Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he does come back, sooner. He's ready to go early next year, and he comes back as good as he finished this season, because as you mentioned, the last few games he's really come on strong. So I hope we get that Taki back. Taki.
I hope we get that Taki back.
Any other additions to the injury report for the Browns?
I don't know if there's any additions, but you mentioned Greg Newsome earlier still has the concussion.
We'll see if we get him back.
And David Njoku was a bit of a
knee issue
surprise during the week, but I guess he got hurt before he made the one-handed catch the week prior and just kind of toughed that out. So
I'm assuming that was a rest week, because they're like, we're playing the Texans, so just just take a week off.
Well, they
and then
said
you
that
can play.
he banged his knee up pretty good. So they haven't said specifically what it is, but
We'll see on that.
but I don't know if he'll be back or not.
Yeah.
This week. So
And then on the Bengals side of things, you mentioned Joe Mixon. He's had a concussion, been out for a few weeks. It's sounding like they're supposed to be getting him back this week, and he's trending towards playing. But you know how those go. You could always have a weird test comes back, and all of a sudden you're out for another week. So, and then Hayden Hurst is doubtful with a hamstring injury.
yes,
So,
he left the game last night.
yeah, who's your player to watch in this one, Kenny? Is it still Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, like I
Mine's
hate to ruin the segment every week, but between now and the end of the year, but.
I don't think I'm going to pick him every week, but one more week at least with him as the guy to watch because you didn't really get anything out of the last.
Yeah,
game.
I mean, he's still a wild card because he could play really well. And if he plays really well, they could win this game pretty easily.
It's in there. The talent's in there.
Yeah, well, we've seen it at some point before.
Yeah.
So to me, he's the wild card. He's the player to watch because the defense and the special teams are not going to give you what they gave you last week every week.
If they do, oh man, we would be a Super Bowl team for sure.
Yeah, Jacoby's probably like, "What the guys? Like,
seriously?
Come on! You couldn't keep the Jets off the field.
We
would
would have won every game by 40 this year if you guys played like that.
But yeah, he's so dynamic when he's playing well that he is our Jamar Chase. He's the game changer. He's the guy that can turn everything around and he plays the most important position on the field. So
I'm with you. I got Deshaun Watson as the player to watch. Like I said, at least one more week here. And mostly because I know we mentioned that the Browns inexplicably lately seem to have the Bengals number. But let's be honest, Deshaun's probably going to have a pretty darn good game for us to win this one. So we'll see.
if he can play as good as Jacoby did the last time around, we could still win.
Fair. So do you know what that takes us to?
What does it take us to?
King of the North. You know,
So we got to do that. Didn't we already cover most of this?
we did, but we're going to cover it again. This probably makes you go somewhat insane every week when we talk about this and you just get further and further behind. Like, how does it feel? Like, I just want to know how it feels. Put me in your frame of mind. What do you think when I start bringing up this segment? Enlighten me.
Here's what I think. There's a lot of football left to be played. And
Not as much as there once was.
and you just don't know what's going to happen.
I would have to be historically bad right now. I'd have to get most picks wrong from here on out. I guess that's doable. You've gotten most picks wrong to start the season. So, anyways, I went 4-1 this past week when you include the Monday Night Football game from the week before. Kenny went 2-3. That brings the total record to 27-15 for me. And Kenny is at 20-22. So, yeah, we should probably start planning what you're going to have to do. You want to get a tattoo?
No, not really.
We should figure something out. But anyways, let's get into the predictions for this week. Not a lot of games.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of games to pick this week. There's only 2 of them because the AFC North is all playing each other.
That's not going to help me.
No. So, like I said, only 2 games to pick. We'll start with Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Who you got, Kenny? Or you want me to go first? I don't care. Whatever you want. You're way behind. So let's just...
Why don't you go first?
All right. Here's the deal. Baltimore just lost Lamar Jackson, and he's definitely not playing in this one. Last year when they lost Lamar Jackson, they went 0-5 to close the season. I got that trend continuing, and I'm going to pick Pittsburgh in this one to beat Baltimore.
So you're going Pittsburgh again.
3rd week in a row.
You're going Pittsburgh again.
Yep. They're still trash, but they've gotten pretty lucky with their schedule the last couple weeks. I mean, they played Atlanta, who's trash. They played the Fighting Jeff Saturdays, who ever since Jeff Saturday came in and beat the Raiders, they've looked like the Fighting Jeff Saturdays.
Look, here's the thing. Tyler Huntley came in last year and played pretty well in relief
he played so well they went 0-5.
of. Okay. But he wasn't the reason they were losing games.
Fair.
It wasn't because he was bad. Everyone on their team got hurt last year. It wasn't just Lamar. Everyone was hurt.
That's fair, but the Steelers got Pickens.
I know, and I actually do think Pickens is turning himself into a serviceable NFL starter, which isn't great.
George Pickens, yeah, he's real good receiver. He's been since day one. He's been really good.
No. I'm talking about Kenny Pickens.
You talk about Pickett?
Yeah, picking Pickets, Pick'ems, throwing Pick'ems.
You're getting Pickens and Pickett mixed up.
No, I'm not. I just call them all Pickens
They're all Pickens.
because they are basically the same. But look, here's the thing. Tyler Huntley played so well last year in reserve of Lamar Jackson. The people were calling Cleveland radio going, we should trade for this guy in the offseason. Like, he's so good.
Those were definitely Baltimore Ravens fans trying to just blow this thing up. Little did they know somebody from Cleveland was going to infiltrate their fan page and turn it into a Browns fan page for 28 days.
That's funny. Yeah, they got him on the Facebook.
I'm glad I remembered
technicality.
that as we got into this. That's hilarious. It changed it into number one, whatever they called it, number one Cleveland fans page or whatever they called it. It has to stay that way for 28 days on Facebook.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Tyler Huntley was 27 of 32 for 187 yards this week.
A lot of yards.
It's not a lot of yards, but it's incredibly efficient, and it's more yards than Deshaun threw for.
That's fair.
He also had 10 carries for 41 yards in the game-winning score. So he's not a bad backup.
With that being said, who are you picking?
And with that being said, Baltimore's still the better team, and Pittsburgh's still trash. So I pick Baltimore this week.
We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
We will see how it shakes out. I'm going to shake it all over you.
Which brings us to the Browns at the Bengals. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I know we've had the Bengals number of late, but I think that comes to an end in this one, and I'm going with the Bengals in this. And probably a dagger officially in our playoff hopes.
I think that Deshaun is going to play up this week. I think he's knocked some of the rust. I think this game in particular might be his best game between now and the end of the season.
Are you sure you're not just picking against me just to pick against me?
I think Deshaun might have a really big week.
Big week.
I don't know that he'll be Deshaun of old. I don't think he's going to throw for 400 yards, but I think he could approach 300 and throw for a couple tutties. And we do still have the best player on the field.
Nick Chubb.
At any given time.
Nick Chubb.
I don't care who we're playing. We have the best player on the field.
Part of the reason I went with the Bengals, though, is because I'm not confident that Kevin Stefanski is going to give him 20 carries.
I'm never confident Kevin Stefanski is going to do anything right because look, what's the date today? It's December 12th, 2022. On December, it's December 5th. I can't even talk. It's December 5th. 2022. On December 5th, 2023, when the Browns record isn't good next year, I'm going to have that same energy. I'll come with that same energy.
Bring the heat.
That Kevin Stefanski still needs to go. Because he'll be here ruining Deshaun and ruining
If he's
our
still
season.
here and we're still bad, I'm gonna be so hard on the fire everybody bandwagon.
I'm gonna keep this clip so we can play it over and over and over again. That I'm telling you,
Told you.
that Kevin Stefanski is the problem with this football team.
Told you.
I don't want to go through a new coach and start over and all this, but you're not going to. Kevin Stefanski is not going to win you a Super Bowl.
Steven Stefanski
Steven Stefanski is not. Look, I'm picking the Browns.
All that bashing of Kevin Stefanski just to pick his team. Good job, buddy. All right, so we're split on both games. It's going to be really good for someone and really bad for the other one. It's only 2 games, though, so it doesn't really matter. All right, let's take one more revenue break before we close this thing out. Hold up that bottle there.
Oh, me. You can blame me.
I will. All right. Towpath Red Wine Barrel Bourbon. This limited release single barrel bourbon from Towpath Distillery is a 4-year-old minimum straight bourbon whiskey finished in red wine barrels. in a red wine barrel, not multiple. And not just any red wine barrel. In order to fully appreciate this truly unique spirit, I want to tell you a quick story. You going to keep holding that?
I am holding it, but the light is reflecting off of the
You're
white.
really ruining my ad read.
The white.
Just
label.
shut your mouth.
You interrupted yourself.
5 years ago, Anthony Piscazzi and Joseph Piscazzi Sr. bought a French oak barrel and filled it with Napa Valley Cabernet, Syrah, and Malbec. A delicious wine rested in that barrel for 18 months. 10 months ago, they filled that barrel with a 4-year-old bourbon. On November 17th, they bottled 303 bottles of red wine barrel and finished straight bourbon whiskey. And then after the release party, they had 216 left for the public. This limited release is available this holiday season only at the distillery. Make sure you get one before they're gone. It's delicious. I've had some. I had my bottle up here, actually, but it was half gone, and Kenny thought it was better if we showed a full bottle.
That's true. It's one of a kind.
It is one of a kind. Get some while you can. Towpath Red Wine Barrel Bourbon.
What I was saying was the label on this was getting washed out by the lights in here.
Our studio lighting is too bright.
Yes.
All right. For the land. All right, we're going to keep it short and sweet this week with For the Land.
Okay.
We're just talking about the Cavs here, and they got lots of injuries. They're really starting to pile up for them. Dylan, what is it, Windler? He's set to miss 4 to 6 more weeks with his injury. Didn't even write down what it was. Ricky Rubio still out indefinitely, but he did get some 3-on-3 work in this week, and supposedly he's nearing a return. Kevin Love still dealing with a broken thumb. Luckily, it's a hairline fracture, right?
Yep.
So he gets to keep playing through it. Kevin Love, since he's been with the Cavs, has played through a lot of injuries.
He's always injured.
I mean, he's been injured a lot and not played, but he's played through some injuries. And so,
look, when it's all said and done, Kevin Love is
one of the greatest Cavs of all time.
Be one of the greatest and most loved. Rue McClanahan, all winners.
All three people, all great champions, all loved.
Jared Allen been dealing with back soreness. He's missing another game, I think tonight, and maybe one more this week. And then now we got Dean Wade has been added to the injury report and expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury.
They're piling up.
So
and Chetty's still bleeding yellow blood.
Yeah, that wild. So hopefully, here's the deal: they just need to play well enough to make it. Get a decent seed. They don't even have to, be towards the top. As long as they get in the playoffs, if they can get healthy by playoff time, I'm still very confident that this team can make a run. And I think they showed early in the season when everybody was healthy just how good they can be.
Yeah, look, and I think right now is kind of where they're going to fall. So currently they're third in the East, which the Bucks are pretty good.
Yeah, I predicted a number 1 seed before the season, like right as the season was getting started, but that was when they had the full complement of everybody. With these injuries, I agree with you.
Yeah, with injuries and just still the team kind of gelling together. I mean, it's the first year with Donovan Mitchell, so I don't think it's unreasonable for them to finish.
3-4 seed is respectable.
Really, for them to finish in so just to make the playoffs this year, like it would be good. But I think that once they get in, they can make a run.
Oh yeah.
But I think between 3 and 6 is probably where they should be. It's where they're seated today, with Boston and Milwaukee ahead of them. I don't know that Boston's going to be long term the best team in the East. Probably Milwaukee is probably better.
Boston's funny because I feel like every year for the past 4 years or so, they're like, it's finally time. Boston's all their young guys they're ready to turn the corner and win this thing, and it just, hasn't happened for them. So,
and it's just because they're Boston too, right? They're like the Lakers of
Boston.
the East. Like
we have a friend that all growing up, living in Northeast Ohio, used to wear his Boston Celtics Paul Pierce jersey around and think he was so cool. And we still make fun of him to this day about it. And he claims he was never a Boston Celtics fan. He was just a Paul Pierce fan. But whatever, dude. You wore a Boston Celtics jersey around high school and middle school, and they're trash.
And that was when we had LeBron.
Yeah, what an idiot.
But anyway, yeah, they need to get healthy. But look, I think this team is they play well together. They're young. They don't know what they don't know, which is
agree.
good. So
I think they got a super high ceiling. So
Yeah, I think-
if I just like you said, as long as they're in the playoffs and they can get healthy towards the end of the season, I would not be surprised at a very, very deep playoff run. So.
yeah, I mean the thing is, if they have all these injuries when they get into the playoffs, it's going to be difficult. But
It's gonna be an uphill battle.
if you can get in with some modicum of just health,
Yep.
like I think they're going to be okay.
All right, so that'll actually do it for the show this week. So in closing, what can we expect next week, Kenny Thunder?
Next week, I'll tell you what we can expect. We can expect the Browns-Bengals recap after a Deshaun Watson victory,
I hope so. I hope I'm wrong.
ruling the jungle. And then we got back-to-back division games here.
I know.
So this is
the turning point.
probably the...
If you're going to get back into it, this is the turning point.
Not that the rest of our schedule is easy, but this is probably your two toughest tests this week against Cincinnati and then Baltimore again. Although we don't know whether Lamar is going to play. But we will preview
I hope not.
the Baltimore and Browns game as well. And hopefully we'll bring a little more energy next week. I felt like we were kind of flat tonight.
New baby, I'm tired, man.
Yeah.
I'm just tired. It's I'm not complaining, just tired. But yeah, that'll bring this is the Burning River Sportscast brought to you by Tap In Media. So you can find Tap In Media on Facebook and Twitter at The Tap In Media, and you can find them on Instagram at Tap In Media Official. And you can find Burning River Sportscast, our podcast, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Burning River Sportscast. And you can find us on Twitter at Burning River Pod. One of these days, I complain every week, but one of these days, Twitter is going to lengthen the amount of characters that you can use in the handle, and we will be allowed to be the Burning River Sportscast.
I don't think it's going to be today.
No, come on, Elon.
Speaking of Elon,
Wait.
oh,
And you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Castro, and so many more. Just go to wherever you get your podcasts, search Burning River Sportscast, listen, subscribe, and hit the notification so you know every time a new episode comes out, which is Thursdays, by the way.
yeah, ring the bell.
If they have a bell. If not,
If there's
just
a
the
bell,
plus sign.
if there's a bell, ring it. Ring my bell.
I think if you're
ring my bell.
just stop. If you're on Pandora, I think you collect things, which is weird. But anyways, go on.
Speaking of Elon,
Yeah.
happy Enron Day. Enron, 21 years ago this week, filed for bankruptcy under the stewardship of CEO Kenneth Lay. It's a strong name, Kenneth.
There's some speaking of podcasts.
Enron.
There's good media out there on the Enron debacle.
Yeah, it's a good story sometimes.
I'm not gonna name drop any podcasts because this is our podcast.
This is our podcast.
But just go check them out. There's quite a few out there that are pretty good.
Google Enron podcasts.
Yep.
Go for it. Have a ball.
Have a ball.
Also, just something interesting that
R.I.P. Enron.
something interesting that I came across this week.
Lay it on me.
That was probably a bad preamble to what I'm about to tell you. I found out that you are more likely to get a virus on your computer
Don't lay it on me.
from religious websites than you are from a porn website.
Wow.
According to research done by a security firm, Symantec, religious websites carry 3 times the amount of malware threats than boob tubes.
Do you know why? They keep the faith. They don't need spam. They don't need any type of security on their websites. They got the faith, bro.
They're walking with the Lord.
Yeah.
Well-
whereas the porn websites, they're like, this is the devil's work. We better put something good on here and protect all of our watchers' computers. So
I don't know. Look, I don't know what the explanation is. What I can tell you is that religion is officially more dangerous than porn.
well, put that on a T-shirt.
And that's a problem. But if you're going to be the problem, don't just be a part of the problem. Be the whole problem.
And don't forget, only you can prevent river fires.
Burning River.
Burning River Sportscast.
Burning River.
Don't do it again.
Watch porn, it's safe.
No, God.
Burning River. Burning River. Burning River. Burning River. Burning River.
Peace. I'm out of here.
Look at Rue McClanahan from Golden Girls.
And totally redeem yourself.